welcome back to another episode of the Vet Hustle Podcast, where we talk to military veterans. And I think we have a good one today. I have Jim Paulk on, and I'm really interested in hearing this story today, and I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Mr. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I'm excited about it.
Yes, sir. So where you from? Where were you born, Jim?
Well, I was born in Brunswick, Georgia, a small town, South Georgia, and stayed there through high school, and then I was all over the country.
All over the country. I heard that.
Yeah.
So how did you get to go all over the country?
Well, I went to after high school. Well, after high school, I went to North Georgia College in
Mhm.
Dahlonega, Georgia, in the mountains for 2 years,
Okay.
and then I went to Annapolis for the Naval Academy for 4 years, and then I went into the Navy, and we moved around quite a bit. When we initially went to San Diego, and then to Portland, Oregon, San Diego, and New London, Connecticut, and Norfolk, Virginia, and then Philadelphia, back to Norfolk, to Baltimore, to Cincinnati, to
Wow.
California. How's that?
Well, so I'm from the Baltimore area originally. I live in Cleveland, Tennessee. But I'm from the Baltimore area originally. And so I get to Annapolis, Baltimore. I know that area. So, from being from Georgia, I want to talk about that. Like, how's it from being from Georgia, a small town in Georgia, to going up to Annapolis and spending time up there up north? How was it? Was it a culture shock for you?
I I had I had a good time. I loved it, and the 5 years I spent in Baltimore were five of the finest years I ever had in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely loved it. And while
Mm-hmm.
we were there, we had Johnny Unitas was the
Yes,
quarterback,
sir. Mm-hmm.
and baseball we had Frank and
Mm-hmm.
Brooks Robinson, and great baseball, football, and the food there was unbelievable. And we'd after a baseball game, you'd go to
Mm-hmm.
O'Brecky's and you'd dump 2 dozen crabs on the table, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd be eating with your hands and drinking beer. You couldn't get better than that.
Don't get better than that. Yes, sir. That's one thing I love being down here in the South, but there's some things about living in Baltimore and that area that like it don't get no better. I love good crab cake, and I love good beer with some crabs, and that just it doesn't get no better than that. So yes, sir.
You're drooling, Lucas.
Yes, sir. So when you talk about it, you got me a little homesick just talking about it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you talked about going to the Naval Academy. What made you want to go to the Navy? I actually have some family in the Navy now, so it's cool.
Lucas, that was my dream since I was a little boy to go to
Okay.
Annapolis, and I wasn't any super special anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a pretty average kid. But after high school, I didn't get an appointment,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to North Georgia College, and after that, I didn't get an appointment, and then after the second year there, I still didn't get one, and I was playing in a golf tournament somewhere in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother called, and a friend came running out on the course saying, "Your mother's call wants you to call home, get home immediately." And I said, "Well, I'm not walking off the course until I finish my match." So I
Mm-hmm.
finished up and I called home, and mother said, "You have an appointment to Annapolis."
Wow.
And that was like a dream come true.
Wow.
So, and I was prepared, and I have to tell you, the first night I got there, and everybody was running around because there were people there from every state in the country and
Hmm.
6 foreign nations there. And so
Hmm.
we said, "Where are you from? What do you do?" and all that. And everybody I talked to seemed like they graduated valedictorian of the class, president of the class, captain of the football team. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I was none of those things.
That's funny, but you got it in.
I did.
Yeah,
We
that's good.
started with 1160 and we graduated 848. So I was pretty lucky to get through there. It's a tough, really tough regimen.
Get that. So you served 5 years in active duty. Served. What was your job?
I was first I was an electronics officer, and then I had the best job on a submarine. I was engineering officer, which was
Mm-hmm.
had all the engineering spaces, and I was in charge of the qualification of all the enlisted men on board, and I love that job. I was the chief diving officer for the submarine, and I was head of just about everything, and it was great. So, and
That's
then in reserves, I was a lieutenant commander, and I just went on active duty and did whatever they assigned me to do.
okay. Okay. So you spent time on a submarine.
Yes.
Tell me about that experience being on a submarine. I knew a guy that was in the Navy that was in that was on the submarines. He's a cigar buddy of mine, and I was like, man, I don't know how you could have did that. I just been so claustrophobic in there.
Well, it gets even more of that when you go in the shipyard. You have to go inside the tanks and check
Mm-hmm.
them out. So, but I never had claustrophobia, and I love operating a submarine.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some pretty scary situations at time, but most of the time it was great, and we always had something that was broken we had to fix, and
Mm-hmm.
and and so it was a lot of activity, and
So
we were special patrols, and a lot of the stuff that we did was secret operations, and that's why they
okay,
call us the silent service, because we don't talk about it too much. But I
yeah.
can tell you that the Russians were watching what we were doing.
I heard that. I heard that. So Jim, are you married? Did you come into the Navy being married?
Yeah, we got married the day after graduation, and
Mm.
we moved around. My wife was with me for 60 years, and I lost her 8.5 years ago. And she's the most impressive person that I've ever met in my life. She was really something special, and I don't know. I think I owe everything in my life to having been married to somebody like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have any kids?
We have three children, and we have uh, I have three great granddaughters,
Mhm.
and they have 3 children now. So I have 3 great grandchildren. But I have a state grandson that's graduating from high school. So
Mm.
one thing about getting old like this, you end up with an extended family.
I heard that. Now, Mr. Jim, how old are you? You don't have to tell me your age if you
I'm
don't want to.
91 and a half.
91 and a half. I like that.
Yeah, you got
Now,
you. I'm a 12-year-old in a 91-year-old body.
look, man, you gotta find ways to stay young in this life. Compared to you, you would say I'm still a baby, but I just turned 40 in April, and I'm like, oh man, I remember being 15 and thinking 40 was so old, and um, now I'm 40 and I'm like, I still feel young. I still feel like a kid at heart though. So I kind of understand what you're saying, but um,
You're in the prime of life.
yeah, and I'm trying to keep it that way because I'm still trying to figure out my life and things like that. I definitely enjoy my life, but I just out here trying to make the best I can. So
Absolutely.
yes, sir. 91 years on this earth. I know you got a lot of experience and things like this. This is why I wanted to have you on and talk to you about some things. So when you get out of the Navy, what is next for you when you get out the Navy?
Well, I got out of the Navy, went to work for Procter and Gamble in the manufacturing,
Hmm.
and I love working with people, and I had a great opportunity to do that. And after 5 years at Baltimore, we went to Cincinnati, and I did troubleshooting for all of their manufacturing of synthetic detergents like Tide and Cheer, Oxydol, Dreft, and so forth.
Hmm.
And we made those in a spray drying tower. That was a 7-story operation, and 50,000 pounds of product per hour. So it was pretty
Wow.
fast
Yeah.
action. And when they had trouble, I'd jump on an airplane and I'd go.
Wow. Yes, sir.
And I mean, there were times I'd get home at 6 o'clock on Saturday and leave Sunday afternoon at 3.
Oh, wow.
So it was busy, but it's great to be appreciated, and when you show up and you can get things fixed for them, uh, that's a good feeling, and to be respected and trusted by others, that's what life is all about.
Yes, sir. Now, how much was the military life taught you about discipline and things like that? Were you a disciplined person before the military? I see you getting out working for Procter and Gamble and things like that. Like, how much did that change your perspective?
Well, Procter is probably the best company to work for in the country. I don't
Mm,
know how it would be better than that. When I
okay.
got out, I think I had like 5 job offers, and I made the decision to go with them because I like the people there better than anywhere else, and that was a good decision because they were great people. It was people oriented, and if you go back and look at the history of the company, you will see that they were the first company that cut back working hours to six
Mm,
and a half days instead of 6 full days.
mm-hmm,
First company to have a profit sharing plan with their people, and all these benefits they had. And in fact, when William Cooper Proctor died, the people took up a collection and had a monument built to him because he had done so much for the people.
mm-hmm.
And definitely a people oriented company. I've been gone a long time, and I just love the company. I love the people. I love my experiences I had, and it was great.
Yes, sir. So, what after Procter and Gamble, where does life take you after that?
Well, I was like operations manager, and a lot of people orientation, and then when I was traveling around, there's different experiences at each plant, and I
Mm-hmm.
just love working with people, and that's my forte. I think is I had a friend in high school that said, Jimmy, you've been organizing us since elementary school, and I think I don't know. I have a reputation, but
Mm-hmm.
I really love the people that I'm working with, and I hope the people that like and trust me too. And I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years, and then when I'll mention this book that I wrote, Shaking Up the World, and this is the first book of its nature at the Naval Academy
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a boring bios. It's about events and people's lives and significant things. And I was so in awe of my classmates
Okay.
because I feel so average, and these guys were unbelievable, and I felt like the world needed to know about it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I did it. And to have a classmate that's the father of the GPS, how about that? That's world changing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to get a building on the campus named after him. That's Brad Parkinson
Okay.
that did GPS. There's a picture
Wow.
in the book of Prince Charles presenting him with the Queen Elizabeth II Award for the European phase of GPS, and he won awards and honorary degrees all over the world for what he did, and it's pretty significant. I had a classmate that spent 3 days on the moon, Apollo 16. That was Charlie Duke.
Wow.
So, and I had a classmate by the name of Bob McElwee that spent 27 years in the NFL as a referee.
Okay.
And when I started to do the book, Bob called me and he said, Jimmy, would you like to have some stories from the NFL? I said, oh, I'm dying, Bob. Thank you. Wow. So I'm going to tell you one of his stories, okay? He said he did 3 Super Bowls, the only official to do a Super Bowl in 3 different decades. But he said that my job as a referee was to stand behind the quarterback and watch everything that happens until he goes to the ground, make sure everything was legal. He said, but before the play started, I had to check the game clock, the play clock, the formations, the substitutions, and a few other things. But when I was in Chicago, I had to do one other thing. I had to check my back pocket and see if my penalty flag was there. If it was not there, he said, I would go to the huddle, I'd stand behind number 34, and I'd say, Walter, give me my penalty flag back. He would reach under his jersey, pull out of his pants, hand it to him. He'd put it back in his pocket. They'd start to play. No one on television or in the stands knew that it happened. But the guys in the huddle, they were all laughing.
I like that story. That's cool.
Yeah, he had some great stories.
Yeah, I love a good story. That's just great. It's cool, and I'm happy to you got all this experience and things like that. People that you get to know that was doing things, and that's just great for me.
Bruce DeMars. Bruce DeMars was working as an assistant janitor at a bank in Chicago. He was from a very poor neighborhood. He had absolutely no future. But the people at the bank took a liking to him, and he had told them that his biggest dream in life was to go to the Naval Academy. But he knew I didn't have any chance to do it. But the people in the bank took a liking to him and got him an appointment to Annapolis. Well, he graduated, went into submarines, went into the nuclear program, advanced up through the ranks, and became a 4-star admiral.
Wow.
He was the director of nuclear reactors. He was the second successor to Rickover, who was in charge of all of the naval reactors in the Navy. And I'll tell you, when I did these stories, if my classmate was alive, I'd send it back to them and ask them to check it for accuracy and edit it in any way they wanted to. Well, when I sent it to Bruce, I didn't get anything back. So I sent him a note, and Bruce, have you had a chance to read the story yet? Well, eventually I got a telephone call from his son. And he said, Jimmy, he said, Dad hadn't been doing very good lately. He says, but I read the story to him. And when I finished, he looked up from the bed at me and said, I want to buy that book. I love that story. But I had classmates that one that spent World War II in Auschwitz, His family was Polish, Jewish, and they lived in eastern Poland.
Okay.
And when the Nazis loaded them into boxcars and transported them west to Auschwitz, when they got out of the boxcar, the wind was blowing in that direction, and they could smell the burning flesh from the ovens. So they knew that they didn't have much of a future.
Mm-hmm.
But the Nazis divided them up. They put the women and girls in one group, the men in a group, and the boys in another group. And he later found out that they executed his mother and his sister instantly. They did not want any females alive that could produce more Jews. Their plan was to execute every Jew in the world. That was what they planned. And they executed millions of them during World War II. But Art Aronson's story is an interesting one because he survived the war, and when it was over, they sent him back to his home in Poland. And his father, who he hadn't seen for 4 years, was sent to New York. So they didn't know where one another was. So it was 2 years after the war by the time they got back together. And so they put him on a ship and he went to New York by himself. He joined his father. They ended up going to Texas and he got an appointment to Annapolis. And when he got there, his roommate didn't even know he was a foreigner because he spoke such great English. He spoke 5 languages, believe it or not. He's brilliant. And we were happy to have him as a classmate. He did well, but we like that story. But it's kind of a sad story. But we had some that were positive and some that were negative, and I could tell you lots of stories that I think would be fun. But the book is a great book. It's by 59 authors that did stories, and it's over 80 stories. And one editor described it as history at eye level. And he said every history program ought to be. This book could be used for research.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. I actually kind of want to get this book now when we get off here. Order this because I like hearing stories like this. This is my thing. And if you was on my actual podcast, I'll be going more into these stories because I do this one. I do some work for a media company and I have my own. You know, I'm actually in a wheelchair, so I have a kind of a disability awareness or storytelling kind of podcast. So, but I definitely enjoy these conversations. Like one of my favorite shows is Bandit Brothers. I love I love Army. Like if I wasn't in a wheelchair, I have 2 brothers that went to the Navy. If I wasn't in the wheelchair, I would have been the one that was in the military because I like that stuff. They didn't like it, but ended up in the military.
Have you got time? You got time for another story?
I got time. I got all day for you.
All right, let me tell you my favorite story.
Mm-hmm.
George Phillips was the commanding officer of a seagoing tugboat. Kind of an unusual position for an Annapolis graduate. But he had 2 chief warrant officers on board and all enlisted men because it's kind of dangerous work working on a tugboat and handling barges and ships and all kind of lines and fuel lines and everything. And so you can't have rookies on board. So one chief warrant officer was in charge of the below deck spaces, and then Chief Bean was in charge of the upper deck, all the handling, line handling, and people and everything. So they got an assignment to go to Philadelphia and pick up a destroyer and tow it around Florida to Texas. So they got hooked up, and this was a reserve fleet, and they had it towing it behind them, and they got out into the Atlantic Ocean, and it started getting very rough out there. And then they got the word that the hurricane was brewing down in Florida. So they said, we better not get hooked up and get out there in that storm because it'd be very dangerous. So they pulled into Port Angeles down there, which is now called Fort Lauderdale, to avoid the storm. But the night before he got in, he started having severe abdominal pains. So the hospital corpsman on board said, "You have appendicitis. I got to get you to the hospital. And as soon as we get tied up, you go into the hospital." So they got secured. Ambulance was on the pier. They loaded up the captain on the gurney, and there goes the captain up the dock and to the hospital. Well, they found out he had gastroenteritis instead of appendicitis. They treated him. He came back to the tugboat. When he came aboard, they were all waiting for him. "Skipper, we haven't been paid in 2 weeks. Here we are in the best Liberty port in the country, and we can't go ashore and have a good time because no one has any money. But we found out if you take our pay records down to the Coast Guard station in Miami, they will pay you. You can come back and pay us, and we can all go ashore and have a good time.
Right. Yes, sir.
And we have a pickup truck for you." So off he goes down Highway A1A with the strip malls on one side and the ocean on the other. At one point, a car backed out of one of the strip malls without looking. He had to swerve to the left to avoid T-boning him, but he scraped all the way down the side of another car. So they pull off the road. The other driver was mad as the devil, called the police. The police came and gave him a ticket. And he took his driver's license. He said, "You're in the Navy. We can't depend on you showing up in court. So I'm keeping your license. But if you come to court this afternoon at 2:00, we'll give you your driver's license back." So there he goes to court. So at 2:00, he's there. The judge is really ornery. He's tough as kick. Half the cases are Hispanic. And anyway, finally, the clerk calls his name. So he stands up, and the clerk reads the charges against him. And the judge says, "How do you plead?" He says, "Not guilty." The judge says, bang, $25. He said, "But Judge, let me explain." He said, bang, $25. He said, "Sir, let me," and he said, "Bailiff, take him away." So the bailiff takes him by the arm and locks him up. Okay, so now the captain is in jail. But he sees there's a telephone on the wall, and he's got some loose change. So he puts a nickel in there, and he calls the boat, and he gets his Lieutenant JG, executive officer. He said, "They got me locked up down here. Bring $25 down here and get me out." And he says, "I don't have $25. He says, "Well, pass the damn hat. There's got to be $25 on the boat." So 2 or 3 hours later, they show up. And the bailiff unlocks the door, and George looks at Bosun Beans. He said, "You're all dressed up in blues like you're ready for inspection." He said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, sir," he said, "I've never seen anybody bail the captain out before, and I want to miss this."
That's funny.
And so about that time, the judge comes out of the courtroom, and he sees all these people standing there. So he comes down, and he and Bosun Bean start looking at each other. all of a sudden they ran together and jumped and jumping around and everything. And George is wondering what in the world is going on. But he found out that those two guys were best friends in New Jersey. They had joined the Navy. They were on a 40mm mount on December 7th, 1941. A bomb hit near them and blew both of them over the side.
Wow.
Each thought the other was dead for the last 24 years.
Wow.
But now they found each other. And so then the judge says $5 court cost. So they paid the court cost, and he went back to the boat. And when he went to his cabin, he got on the phone and he called his wife. Honey, sit down. I have something to tell you. In the last 2 days, I've been in and out of the hospital and in and out of jail. And that's all I have to say.
I like that story.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite one. But I've got some others that would probably make great movies. We're not trying to do movies or anything, but of course the astronaut program would make a great movie. And
for sure.
And I had another classmate that was born in Shanghai, China, in 1933. His father was retired chief quartermaster in the Navy and worked at the embassy there.
Okay.
But when the Japanese invaded China and started moving south and the bombs started coming down on Shanghai, they decided they better get out of there. So they got on a ship and went to the Philippines. Bad move. The Japanese were soon there. The father was given a job and they got a place to live, and they said, if there's an air raid, you run down the street to the fort. That's your air raid shelter. Well, our sirens went off and they went running to the shelter, and when they came back, their house had a direct hit and everything they had was gone. And the chief checked at where his place of work, a bomb had hit there and all the people they'd worked with had been killed. So when the army surrendered there to the Japanese, they were told to go and surrender too. So they surrendered, and his father was arrested as a spy. But after interrogation, they let him go. So they eventually went to internee camp, which is a prison camp for civilians, and they were moved around from camp to camp, and food was very scarce, and he and his brother would go under the fence and go out in the jungle and get fruit and bring it back. If they had ever been captured, they would have probably been shot. But they had to have food. So near the end of the war, the Army had a rumor that the Japanese planned to execute all of the people in this camp, 200 of them. Wow. So they planned a raid, and they parachuted raiders in and coordinated with the Filipino guerrillas. They executed the 75 Japanese guards. They put all of the internees into Amtraks, which are the vehicles that can operate on land and water, and they got them loaded up and got them out of there before Japanese reinforcements could get there. And it was a close call, but they got them out of there. And at that time, my classmate, Walt Mukow, weighed 62 pounds, and he was 13 years old. He was almost a starved death, but he got an appointment, got to Annapolis, and graduated and went into the Navy. But that story with all of the action in it and
Mhm.
all the developments and drag it out, it would be a great movie.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. As you telling me, I'm thinking of it as a movie. Like I'm picturing everything as a movie. So, Jim, I'm getting towards the end of my time here, but I've appreciated a lot of stories and what you bring to the table. I'm probably just going to talk for a little bit more, but Shaking Up the World, that seems like a great book, and I actually want to buy that book and read it and learn a little bit more about some of these people. I think these are great stories, and um, yeah,
The ebook versions are on sale this summer for $4.99 if you want to get the ebook version.
okay,
But they're available at Amazon, and there's a lot there's about me and about the book and
mm,
reviews on Amazon that people can read. So I hope everybody can get it. By the way, the proceeds from this book are going to the Naval Academy Foundation, and we sponsor a history professor in the history department at the academy that teaches naval heritage. That's our gift, my class gift to the academy. So I don't get anything out of it. This is all going to charity.
yes, sir, yes, sir. Well, let me ask you just a few questions, but I wanted to kind of not necessarily get personal, but we talked about the Navy and write you writing a book and stories and things like that. But outside of all of that, what were your favorite hobbies? What are your hobbies now? What do you love to do on
My
your own time?
my passion in life is fishing.
Mm.
Everywhere I went on a submarine, I slept with my rod and reel. We didn't have a storage place. It was outboard my bunk. And everywhere I have fished all over the world. And Rachel and I, my caregiver here,
Mhm.
drives me over to a farm pond on Friday mornings, and I fish for 2 hours off a dock.
Hey.
And I catch bass and put everything back, but I can't do all the fishing that I used to do. But I love to fish. Do you like to fish?
I do. I don't get a chance to fish a lot, but I have people in my life that if I wanted to, if I'm really serious about doing it, I can go fish. I got a buddy has a little pond or whatever on his property. I have people that I can, and I want to get back to it. I did more fishing as a kid than I do as an adult, but it's pretty well. Like one of my podcasts, I want to do a podcast with a buddy of mine. He loves to fish too, and just set up my camera and some microphones and just fish. While we just have a conversation. I think that'd be a cool podcast episode.
If you ever want to do one on fishing, we'll do it. Rachel and I did one on fishing bass with worms, Racky rig.
Wow.
You ever heard of Wacky?
Mm-mm, I
No.
have not. Mm-mm.
I got you.
Yes, sir. No, I have not.
Uh, but we've done a lot of videos that are posted on our Facebook account,
Okay.
reels of fishing, and we talk about how I even did demonstration of tying knots
Okay.
and how to rig worms and even casting and showing them how to catch worms,
Hmm.
catch fish, and we've done a lot of that, and my fans like those more than anything else I do,
Hmm.
I think.
Well, it's something personal. They get to know you and feel like they know you on a more deeper level of, like I said, I talked to you about a lot of things, but I didn't get to what your passion was. And I really want people to see what your passion is outside of a great life that you have lived. What are you passionate about? So,
Yeah, I like I told you when I started, I'm a 12-year-old in a 91-year-old body.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like that a lot. So, before we get off, is there any encouragement or anything that you want to leave the the audience with?
Say that again.
I said, one last question. Is there any encouragement or anything that you want to leave the audience with that's going to be listening to this episode?
Well, I would say here's a guy that's very average. Okay. I don't excel in anything. And I was a very poor writer. Okay. And I kind of sneaked up on this thing and I
Mm-hmm.
started writing, and my writing was poor. So I encourage people to write stuff down and throw it in a drawer, and later you can get it out and make it in a story for your family. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to publish it, but write stories down so that they aren't lost, because they're going to, when you go away, they're going to be gone. And you need to
Mm-hmm.
pass stories down, because if you think about it, since humanity started, stories have been passed down. The caveman wrote their stories in the wall and in caves. The
Mm-hmm.
the our forefathers had stories. The Bible is stories. Everything is stories. So I encourage people to write stuff down. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about sentence structure. Don't worry about anything. Just scribble it down and throw it in a drawer. And
Mm-hmm.
someday you can do something with it.
Yes, sir. I like that. That's probably one of the best responses I ever got doing podcasting. Um, just write stuff down. And Jim, like I said, I appreciate you being on, and I've enjoyed this conversation. And I wish that I didn't have to stop, but I have to. So, but it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having us on. We enjoyed to be here.
Yes, sir.